the fact that we're here, we're ready. And in the bottom right, it's so exciting for big esports. His name, of course, folks, is ShoWTimE.
That man has definitely been representing the Berlin International Gaming for quite some time now, and I think not too long ago he actually announced that he's going to stay with them even longer, so that's great news, of course, for ShoWTimE and StarCraft. This man has also been with his team for quite some time, representing the ever so lovely North American organization ShoWTimE Gaming, the Prince of Denmark, going for that trademark pylon on the low ground, MaxPax.
You know, Roddy, I had been told that the single gate expand, the low ground expand was dead. It was in the ground. And then MaxPax started doing it again. So, you know, just MaxPax things, I guess.
Yeah, I do think it got a little bit weaker just because the Void Ray obviously got a bit more expensive and overall a little bit weaker. But in the end of the day, if you have the correct scouting, and MaxPax has practiced his scouting game patterns early on so many times throughout the last few years, it is okay because you don't always have to play Void Ray. Sometimes your opponent will just be expanding. You can still just play Oracle, you're totally fine. Sometimes the better choice is actually the robotics facility. And if you find what you're looking for and you don't even need to rely on those Void Rays, it is all okay. And it's really hard to punish this. Like for a while, I always thought, oh, you can just do X, Y, or Z, but it really isn't that simple. If you want to be aggressive against this, you need to keep your opponent in the dark. The problem is MaxPax has like Hawkeye vision or something. The man sees everything. Will always have multiple probes looking out on the map. And if your attack gets revealed early, it's actually almost impossible to break a player like MaxPax. So far from that, but I'm curious to see what ShoWTimE's approach against it is going to be today.
That it is, because of course, when we do have one player go for that low ground gate expand and they get their Nexus, actually, there have been some builds. I don't know that they exist quite as much anymore because of that shield battery nerf, but there have been those builds where you just don't get the Nexus, and it is actually an aggressive build behind the, I am building a single gate. But if that is that setup, right, where it is one Nexus versus one gate Nexus versus two, ShoWTimE will just have to acknowledge that he is minorly behind in this setup again, assuming that things go down as they should, and as that second pylon goes down, MaxPax, he's mineral bank. Ooh, nope. That's a kill.
Yep, no cancel there by Mr. Mauer, and that is actually a mistake you're really not supposed to make early on. Probably just thought that there wasn't enough DPS there, or that pylon would live a little bit longer, but it's actually kind of a big deal. So he loses the probe, loses the pylon, can no longer delay that Nexus, will just get his own Nexus, but obviously, A, it's a little bit later, and B, he just lost 100 resources for absolutely nothing.
Well, you know, Rotterdam, pack it in. Game's over. We're going to go to game 2 pretty soon, folks. The 100 mineral cost that ShoWTimE has now spent it's unrecoverable. Right? That's how that works?
Yeah, I would feel like that is how it works if I play against MaxPax. But fortunately, Mr. Mauer is a whole lot better at this video game than I am. So hopefully he will find a way to just maneuver his way out of it. And if nothing crazy happens in the next 2 minutes, he's obviously going to be fine. But it's not a pleasant start to start your best of 5, where you know it's really going to come down to details, as these two are so evenly matched.
Oh, I mean, yeah, you brought it up. It's 15-15 all the time, 46-47 in maps, just trading series back and forth. It's funny, actually. We have 2 series like that today where it's like, wow, this is ridiculous. These players are, I can't believe that it is so closely matched here. But look at this, Roddy. You know, we're into this game because MaxPax has his Nexus faster. He will have that Forge just a little bit faster. Twilight slower, though. So does ShoWTimE, assumedly this is going to be Blink. Does he look to use that? Does he try to leverage that in some way? Or is Glittering Ash just, okay, look, this is too big. I'm going to have faster Blink, but it really won't impact me all that much?
I mean, there are many ways to play it out. Some players actually like to go from 2 gateways all the way up to 3 bases, and then they go from 2 to 8. But there's also quite a few Protoss players that like to go up to 4 gateways very quickly and then just poke a little bit. And, you know, if you have a good concave, you have slightly better micro, things can snowball very quickly. Because taking one bad fight with Blink Stalkers just means that your opponent has insane amount of micro potential, and Stalkers don't fire crazy fast like Marauders with Stim. So if you can get a decent little Stalker advantage, you can actually just snowball and straight up win with it. But it truly depends on the intentions of the player. I have a hard time believing that ShoWTimE wants to be that risky, that adventurous early on. So it's most likely going to set up into a nice little macro game.
I mean, MaxPax, though, pylon out here on the map, keeping his probe with the pylon for now. Looks like, yeah, he's going to add a gateway on the map here, timing out with a Blink and +1 finishing up here. You said it's hard to believe that ShoWTimE gets aggressive, but he also is getting aggressive, maybe a little bit further back. This is interesting here because you look at this as Glittering Ashes. That's 3 base play for the most part, +1 blink, 3 base play for the most part. That gateway on the map there, Rotterdam, that's a little bit of a wrinkle.
ShoWTimE, oh my goodness, ShoWTimE was actually very close to scouting it. I mean, MaxPax can also just use this to warp into a depth. If he realizes that ShoWTimE is going to try to do the same thing as he wants to do, as MaxPax has a hallucinated Phoenix and he spots a couple of those stalkers, so he should kind of know what's up. It's so funny that neither of them has scouted the proxy gate yet, because in a scenario like this, the best thing you can do is obviously not attack, because you know that your opponent is going to be quite ready for it, because it's not like they've been ultra greedy and not building any units. Oosh, MaxPax with a misrallied stalker walks casually past the army of ShoWTimE, ends up losing one. That is something he can recover from, and now ShoWTimE actually scouts that proxy gateway from MaxPax.
That he does, and even if all that matters about this is he just kills the gateway, and regardless of MaxPax losing pressure or not losing pressure, that's going to be one less gate that MaxPax has in the production queue when ShoWTimE looks. Oh, yeah, he's going to blink forward here. The question now is whether ShoWTimE is going to be able to deal with this. So MaxPax on the high ground, marginally better spot, blinks forward, gets a stalker, but now ShoWTimE on top of things. Guardian Shield gets popped here, and it's a nice one. Oh, it's getting every single stalker, but here we go. ShoWTimE now backs up, and MaxPax is committing this, Roddy. He's got a pylon down again.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, especially because ShoWTimE actually had more units. MaxPax blinked into an army that was slightly bigger than his army, and he still didn't see that proxy gateway on the right side. So this really could have gone very bad for MaxPax. In the end, it's kind of all right, and he has taken most of the fight with +1, but ShoWTimE doesn't have +1, but he's still going to be forced to disengage. I feel like both players were misreading that a little bit. Obviously, because MaxPax wasn't quite aware of that gate of ShoWTimE, and ShoWTimE was ready to attack, and suddenly he saw the gateway of MaxPax, and he's like, maybe I should just set up for that. So I think kind of a confusing game for both players, as Mr. Mao doesn't seem to be done yet, though. Wants to keep being aggressive.
Yeah, he does. He blinks forward. He gets a couple probes, knocks the stalker down in exchange, and we do need to point out he is up marginally in that stalker count, 16 to 14. So he does have a little bit more agency right now, and he's just really trying to leverage that to get aggressive. I don't see, it looks like he's getting ready for a 4th base eventually, but we're not there quite yet. MaxPax, again, down a little bit in production as the game goes on, as he does add more gateways. ShoWTimE is adding a lot more, though. He's going up to 9 gateways here to power that economic engine, or to take advantage of that economic engine that he has, Roddy. And in general, it seems like he's just doing a fantastic job of using map state, like leveraging his tempo into more advantages in this mid game.
Yeah, I don't think that ShoWTimE can be feeling bad about anything that has happened in the first 8 minutes. Sure, he lost that pylon initially, and that was a bit silly, but afterwards, you know, even though the attack that he had in mind didn't quite work out the way that he originally planned it, because he was forced to turn around, he took some decent trades, and he was macroing slightly better behind it. That's obviously not something that he necessarily knows. Like, it's not like ShoWTimE knew, oh, I'm going to be 5 workers ahead of MaxPax. But that is something that was actually kicking in for quite some time. And because of that, ShoWTimE was able to warp in a few extra gateways and has honestly put himself in a pretty decent spot here 9 minutes in. And it's funny how we took completely different routes, yet now 9 minutes in. It all looks very similar, but now we're taking different tech routes. Now one of them is going into Archons, the other one goes into the Robo Bay. So it's going to be very fun to see how this one plays out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's that interesting tech inflection point, right, where you have all this charge lot Archon, and it looks really good, and against, say, 2 Disruptors, it's kind of okay because you get on top of them. But then you get to 4, 5, 6, and suddenly that tech path that ShoWTimE has gone for just doesn't feel quite as good. But if ShoWTimE can hit his timing, certainly now denying the 4th base, actually MaxPax not even going to get it just yet, so it will be heavily denied here. ShoWTimE's 4th base is done, by the way, so he is just powering ahead. I don't know that MaxPax necessarily wants to take this fight, though. That is a lot of charge lots here, but he's going to try to take it anyways. Zealous now running forward, and MaxPax, he's just got to blink back for the moment, secure his spot. He's not really going to own that 4th base position just yet, though.
Yeah, I think as long as he can guide the Zealots a little bit and he didn't do something silly like blink forward, it was always going to be fine. MaxPax has set up a couple of Zealots on the left side to run into that 4th base of ShoWTimE. And if ShoWTimE warps in a couple of units now, that's going to be very annoying to deal with because he has 0 cannons, 0 batteries there. As we do have the first Archon showing up, and ShoWTimE decides to just recall against only 4 Zealots. Not with his entire army, but definitely with a decent amount of units.
Now, MaxPax saw that recall, though, and he opted to chase on the back of it because regardless, ShoWTimE recalls his entire army, maybe something gets left, or he recalls 50% or whatever it is, and suddenly MaxPax's army is much bigger. So, nice move there for MaxPax, not quite able to find his way up to the high ground, though. And behind this, MaxPax, he's found that gateway. He's going to depower it eventually, so ShoWTimE only on 9 gateways now, not 10. I mean, big deal. But now Recall's on cooldown, Roddy. Now MaxPax has a little bit more agency on the map to move around to do things. And, oh, this is interesting. I did not expect this. It's going to be double Phoenix play coming in from ShoWTimE to deal with the disruptors.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that we definitely did a while ago, where it's like, all right, the Phoenix can just lift the disruptors, but I feel like over time, the Stalker disruptor player got a lot better in dealing with a couple of Phoenixes, and they just won't fire the Novas at first, and then it becomes really awkward to engage, because it's like, your Phoenix want to be close, but they don't want to be too close, and they all get gunned down. You don't want to lift the disruptors before they're fired. I am surprised that this is the way that ShoWTimE wants to deal with it, because I don't think of ShoWTimE as a bad disruptor against disruptor player at all. He is really going for a different solution. I think ideally with this playstyle of ShoWTimE, he wants to keep MaxPax on 3 bases for as long as possible. And not even that will guarantee victory. But I do think that's key, because if MaxPax gets up to 4 bases as well, I kind of think that MaxPax's tech route is just better.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, in general, I agree. Blinkstalker Disruptor, just over the long term, there's a reason we see Protoss players transition into it out of Charged Lot Archon. But MaxPax, I guess, seeing the significant amount of Zealots that are on the field right now, he's transitioning into Colossus behind this. Now, Roddy, you can't lift Colossus, but Phoenix, they still have some level of anti-air, but actually that doesn't matter because hold that phone. ShoWTimE now trying to aggress on in. First couple disruptors going to go off, not going to hit anything right now. You said ShoWTimE wanted to keep the 4th base down, so we're going to have to see if he can do that right here. Phoenix, they're sitting on the edge of things. Zealot's trying to get on top of everything, and they're going to get the shield battery going down here, but there we go. Good lifts on the disruptors for now. ShoWTimE kind of trying to bust on through. 10 workers have died for both sides here because I guess MaxPax has DTs on the other side of the map. And the 4th base looks like it will get broken after all. Right as +3 does complete. MaxPax now maybe he's going to try to force his opponent back. Big disruptor shots on the backside. But Roddy, it feels like at the end of the day, ShoWTimE got what he came for.
Yeah, I think he got what he came for, but it's important that he doesn't end up losing everything right now, though. He's going to end up losing a few more Zealots. He still wants to fight this army. He might be able to get on top of 1 or 2 disruptors, but I think ShoWTimE is overcommitting here a little bit, especially because there's still another battery in the back. Obviously, battery overcharge could be activated again. Keeping MaxPax on 3 bases is great, especially because he's going up to 5. I do think it's time to go home now for a split second. And he's actually just going to go into his own disruptors at this point. So he's given up on the Phoenix Dream. I think both players handled that fight really well, actually. And that's what I love to see in StarCraft 2. I like how ShoWTimE really prioritized the battery overcharge. Otherwise, it would have just been a disastrous fight. And he was patient with the Phoenixes until MaxPax was like, all right, now I do really need to at least fire a couple of these Novas. That's when the Phoenixes show up. They cancel those Purification Novas. But MaxPax didn't make the mistake of then just losing everything and staying around for too long. Still microed units back. Honestly, very high level play by both sides.
And he did get some excellent shots on the backside to really equal, or at least to make that fight much more doable. And we talked about it a second. We saw it on the screen. MaxPax, he got decent damage on the other side with, I believe, his DTs. Not enough to equalize him, but at least to make it so he's not down and out by taking that damage. But now, Roddy, here comes MaxPax, 4 Colossus, 3 Disruptors on the field. The Colossus are actually going to deal with the Zealots extremely well here, and I don't know how many Phoenix we have on the field right now. We have 2, so not really a lot of lifts. DTs get on top of the cannons, but ShoWTimE, he has 2 of them there. It's not going to matter, though. So MaxPax trying to distract this army, and it's going to find something natural. But yeah, MaxPax, he's found some inside tracks. He's going to try to knock down this 5th base.
Yep, MaxPax should absolutely be able to, I feel like, be a little more adventurous right now than he actually is, because even if ShoWTimE gets his first 2 disruptors out, which ShoWTimE has managed to do, and there are 2 more on the way, MaxPax did not lose all his disruptors in the previous fight. So he's got a better army, because the Colossus are fantastic against the Zealots, and the disruptors of MaxPax should be able to keep the disruptors of ShoWTimE at bay. I actually think that MaxPax gave ShoWTimE a little more respect there than ShoWTimE deserved at that moment. With the DTs in the natural, it was a perfect moment to just straight up take out that 5th base, but MaxPax seems like he wants to play it safe.
And I'll buy that one. At a certain point, when you have high disruptor counts, there's a reason we don't see Colossus in PvP for the most part. Disruptors just do a fantastic job of killing them, but for right now, when we're looking at, what is it, 2 4 disruptors for ShoWTimE, the Colossus, they're still strong. DTs try to find something. They actually really don't get much of anything. MaxPax, you mentioned his map vision. He's doing such a good job of just having detection wherever he really needs for these DTs. But now here comes MaxPax, finding his way onto the 5th base. And ShoWTimE, he has a massive concave set on up here, run by onto MaxPax's 4th as well. The question, though, is when does ShoWTimE pull the trigger? Because the longer this goes, the more MaxPax has chaos all over the map. So 2 workers have died right now. Disruptors around the corner, not going to get anything, though, Roddy.
MaxPax losing so many probes on the right side. He had one cannon, walked in a couple Zelos, but it wasn't enough. So MaxPax kind of realizes that he needs to accomplish a little more with his main army than he's been doing so far, because losing 21 probes is simply a few too many. Finally did warp in a few DTs to deal with these Zealots, but if there's still 12 Zealots left, that takes a little while. At least MaxPax does get a few probes himself, and that Nexus finally. Man, this is still really close. MaxPax is economically behind, but he does just have the better army, even though the disrupt count of ShoWTimE is really getting up there at this point. And now engaging becomes very difficult for the young Danish man as well.
That it does. It feels like in part his army is timed out here a little bit. These Colossus, they're so clunky. They don't dodge disruptors all of that well, but as you said, he's been able to kill off ShoWTimE's 5th base. MaxPax has been trading much better this entire game, looking at about, to the tune of about 3,000 resources, which maybe that justifies his economic deficit over the last bit. I don't know quite how it works out. Math is not exactly my strong suit, but for now, he is on equal bases. He is down workers, and he's going to get another cancel there. Good job, ShoWTimE, making sure that's not a kill. But now MaxPax trying to find that inside track once again. Disruptor shots, though. Okay, he's going to be able to blink out. But Roddy, you were talking about, it's so hard to engage this.
Yep, basically you always want to be the one that gets engaged into, because then you can just fire the shots first. MaxPax has been able to get his entire army up on the high ground. Whoa, ShoWTimE actually with an almost very unfortunate misclick. Needs to be so careful, because it's just disruptors by themselves. The main army of ShoWTimE was busy dealing with a couple of Zealots and that one DT. This is really risky, because imagine if MaxPax had a few more Zealots here too to get on top of those disruptors. I think ShoWTimE could have ended up losing all of them. Instead, it's a bit of a stalemate. ShoWTimE thinks of going for a little flank. Now we are just increasing disrupted numbers left and right. ShoWTimE's got 11. Like, that is a almost silly amount.
I mean, a wise man once said, Roddy, more money, more problems. But I think in this case, it's more disruptors, less problems. And now the balls, they keep going out. Ooh, big shot there for MaxPax. Gonna knock down a couple disruptors, getting even more now. And you said it was 11. Now it's equal disruptor counts here. MaxPax not getting first mover's advantage on that one. But as he aggresses on for it, how are the cooldowns? He's going to get a couple more. And there we go. It's really starting to trade out pretty damn well for MaxPax around this 4th base. But, Roddy, on the other side of the map, that is a significant run by coming in from ShoWTimE.
Yeah, I think MaxPax is going to be forced to evacuate that base. I'm not sure if a recall would save it, so we're basically trading out 4th bases. Gotta say, MaxPax handled this fight incredibly well, though, as ShoWTimE had one disruptor misrally there too towards the end. Mr. Mao just wants to let one big Nova. He probably feels that is all he needs, but MaxPax, despite the fact that he was heavily down in those disruptor numbers, was always able to get into the right spot and was able to fire just ever so slightly quicker. And at that point, your shot will always take out the other disruptor. Getting on top of this base would mean that ShoWTimE really doesn't have a lot of income left. And we have a few more DTs in the natural of ShoWTimE too. I think that MaxPax is slowly but steady is closing out this game without a final fight.
This is actually such an incredible game for MaxPax. When we talk about MaxPax in part, we talk about his ability to come back in games, but normally we're talking about against Terran in that situation as disruptors, and not really going to get all that much. But even when MaxPax lost his 4th base right then, he lost 5 probes. He got most of them out. ShoWTimE lost his base. He lost every single probe there. And now the German Protoss is on 19 workers. He's down in army supply. Yeah, sure, he has a decent amount of disruptors. He doesn't even have that lead anymore. So that's a very low Archon. And you said it's going to be that MaxPax is trying to close this game out without a final fight. Well, it looks like MaxPax is trying to posture now for that fight that will seal a game that maybe, arguably, is already kind of won for him here. So the question now is, how does ShoWTimE, is there a fight that he can take that allows him to maybe swing the tables back in his favor?
I mean, 4 disruptors in a dream, that's honestly all we can say. He needs the 4 biggest shots on all the stalkers, disruptors, ideally on a couple of the Colossus too. But it's incredibly unlikely. If we couldn't do it before, where we had way more disruptors and we had a bigger army, there go the disruptors of ShoWTimE, and that could very well do it for this game, as those were the last 3. GG gets called. MaxPax takes the 1-0 lead after honestly a very cool 20-minute game on Glittering Ashes. The army movement of MaxPax towards that 4th and 5th base was so cool, because he just keeps on going back to the center, up the high ground again, back to the center, and eventually he just wants to get in range of the Nexus where the disruptors are not firing yet, because then he can start firing and he can keep the army of ShoWTimE at bay. It was honestly a masterclass of movement there, really well played by MaxPax.
Man, some people talk about they don't like Glittering Ashes. It's too big of a map. It's too turtly. I'm sorry, you're wrong. We get matches like this all the time, and when you have this game state where it is almost impossible to end the game before four bases, yeah, sure, sometimes the games get sad. But I mean, for every sad game where it's just like, okay, one player's dead, but not really, because you just have to wait to kill the bases, we get games like that, which was, as you said, so interesting, so technical. The map movement of MaxPax, incredible. But Roddy, we move into Blackbird now, which is another map maybe in the same vein, maybe slightly more turtle forward. In general, kind of a shorter map.
Yeah, no, I think Blackburn and Glittering are very different. I think attacking on this map is in general a lot harder. Setting up run-bys, I think, is a lot harder on Blackburn. And this is a map where ShoWTimE is also supposed to go for that pylon on the low ground, the gateway on the low ground. And these two have had plenty of great Phoenix against Phoenix games in the past, where it's all about who goes into carriers first. And, you know, one carrier is nice, but it doesn't make the difference. Two carriers, that can definitely tip the scales once it gets into more, then the Phoenixes really start dropping off. But it's been really fun watching these two play on maps like Blackburn in the past. So I kind of hope we get a game like that. Even if it has a lot of downtime, I always enjoy their decision making and the reads. Let's see. This man is definitely going to be kicking himself a little bit, though, because the early Stalker skirmishes, they definitely went his way. And at one point, he was in an all right spot. Just wasn't able to quite close it out. The man who has made it into the top 4 of the 2021 DreamHack Winter Season Finals. This is ShoWTimE. Or well, European regionals, I obviously mean from Winter. You know what I mean, people.
Yeah, it's good enough. And in the bottom right, he is the greatest piece from Storm, MaxPax.
It was really cool. After 4 seasons, we never had a Protoss make top 4 in any of these European events. And then in the 5th season, MaxPax was the first ever European Protoss to have a top 4 finish and qualify back then for those season finals. Now you would get a ticket to the DreamHack Masters Valencia offline. And after MaxPax kind of blazed the trail, ShoWTimE was like, so it is doable. And he did it the following season and ended up with a top 3 finish.
Although, Roddy, you talk about Protoss in top 4. It is unfortunate when 2 of the players, the only 2 Protoss, arguably, I don't know, who knows. I'm really impressed with Skillus, very excited about him. But we have these players knocking themselves out in the second round, which is incredibly sad. I know I opened the day with, I am excited to send people home. But I mean, that was for the memes. I am very sad to see one of ShoWTimE or MaxPax end his run right here, because as you said, I mean, they are so impressive. They're finally, feels like, breaking through against the holy triumvirate at the top of the European ladder. But you can't really do that if you run into each other in lower bracket round 2.
No, you can't. But like you said, we still have Skillus to be hopeful over. And don't forget about the biggest of caps that's still in the upper bracket, as that man is basically just one best of 5 away from also locking up a top 3 finish and only ever to be the 3rd European Protoss to do so. So there is a lot to be hopeful for Euro Protoss, and it is sad to say goodbye to one of these two, but at least we can see them go at it, and they are not holding back. This is about as big and prestigious as it gets for any online game, so we know we get to see the very best of ShoWTimE and MaxPax. And even though it's sad to see one of them go, that's still pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You mentioned this when we were in between games, I guess, but well, we do have, of course, we have low ground expand. This is Blackburn. I mean, with the ramp, everyone does it. Stargates from both sides. If this is Phoenix play, as you said, it felt like the advent finally of Phoenix play being the meta out of these 1-gate expands. That was the thing that led MaxPax to beating up ShoWTimE all over the place, end of 2021. In those EPT Cup finals, things like that. So now, again, MaxPax ShoWTimE, it is the Phoenix play in this game. Roddy, how excited are you?
I mean, I am excited. I also feel sorry for everyone who's not excited, because games like this, they can look very similar and it can become dull. But to make this a little more fun as a viewer to yourself, what is very interesting is to see when they go for a second Stargate, when they go for a Fleet Beacon, when they go for maybe triple Stargate, no Fleet Beacon. And even the idea of not moving with the Phoenixes is exciting, because we see everything and we know that often there is nothing to get excited over. But if you're ShoWTimE or if you're MaxPax right now, at any given moment, you're like, Is he still building Phoenix? Is he still building Phoenix? Is he going for a super quick fleet beacon? Is he gonna do something crazy like triple Stargate and try to overrun me before I made an investment into fleet beacon and any impulse crystals? Or is he doing the one thing that everyone hates, and that is secretly dropping a Twilight Council and then dropping a Dark Shrine? So these kind of games are funny as, you know, a viewer that sees it all. We have all map vision, no fog of war. We're like, okay, nothing happens. But as a player, I can guarantee you it's super nerve-wracking.
Oh, I mean, yeah, when the balance of power is one Phoenix, or even, you know, having a Phoenix pop out because of defender's advantage,
yeah.
Oh man, such a knife edge fight. But now here comes MaxPax trying to maybe change the balance of power with this Stalker on the ground. Do we have a shield battery? We do. So this single Stalker probably really should not make the difference. Shield battery overcharge too strong. But MaxPax, we talked about his map presence, his map motion in that last game. He's trying to maybe take advantage of that here, because I'm pretty sure he's seen the Phoenix. And there we go. The Stalker is dead, but now that's one Phoenix not fighting. So MaxPax going to try to dive in maybe with these additional Phoenix. But no, Stalker's dead. MaxPax not going to take that fight, not trusting in maybe what his read was. And now he's going to go back home a little bit, because defender's advantage is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it really is. I think this is more about MaxPax is trying to play as honest as possible, and he does not want to roll the dice. Because if he's just at home, who's telling him that ShoWTimE is not going into DTs? And if he's just building Phoenixes, he would be dead. So for him to kind of be there in the front, he does not believe one Stalker is going to make the difference in the Phoenix battle. He just wants to make damn sure that ShoWTimE is still building Phoenixes, and that what he thinks is happening is actually happening. So he's just playing a very fair and honest game. And in a way, that was the safest scout he could do. Because like you said, if you would scout only with the Phoenix, defender's advantage, ShoWTimE takes the fight in range of a battery in the beginning, then has one more Phoenix, just straight up wins. So donating a Zealot and a Stalker just to confirm that what you think is happening is actually happening is a very big deal.
And Roddy, you talked about this. You said, okay, well, does someone go? Who goes to Fleet Beacon first? And well, that's going to be ShoWTimE in this game. So MaxPax, he's going to scout it. That there's a third. It looks like he wants to dive into this. He thinks he's maybe has an advantage. He does have one, but shield battery, he cannot take the fight right here. And now we have to be very afraid for MaxPax. Yep. In about 30 seconds, he cannot be on the map. Any impulse crystals is going to make such a big difference, but he doesn't know that yet.
Wow. Ooh, okay. Yeah, that was very good. Kills the probe and somehow kills the Phoenix, but you're spot on. MaxPax really is on the timer that any impulse crystals is massive, and if they take a fight on this side of the map and any impulse crystals is done, ShoWTimE can just continue to chase all the way home. MaxPax really needs to go home right here, right now. ShoWTimE maybe feels that he is the one with quicker anti-impulse crystals, so he's going to try to pick up some reinforcements, and that's really good, because then he will see that he has the purple lasers. Like, this is kind of where ShoWTimE, if he wouldn't have lost that one Phoenix, I think he'd be a lot more confident, where he's like, let's just see, because this was the golden opportunity. Right now, ShoWTimE's army is so much better than MaxPax's army. It's just one of these things we know, and ShoWTimE doesn't.
And it seems like he does not. MaxPax, he gets home really because ShoWTimE tries to catch off reinforcements. If that was a straight up fight, folks, the game is over right now. There's no way that MaxPax ever fights that with anti-impulse crystals. And he doesn't, but now he's back home. His own extended Phoenix range is going to be ready soon enough. And we're starting to see something. The best part about PvP is the fact that we actually have nothing that shoots anything on the ground. So we have these scouting pylons right next to each other, Roddy, and that it fills me with so much joy.
Yep, and you just don't want to make a Zealot at this point. Like, ShoWTimE doesn't even have Warp Gate. MaxPax doesn't even have Warp Gate. People used to make fun of me, but they're like, hey, you know what? It is useless indeed. Now, Phoenix fight is going to take place here. These fights are very chaotic, and sometimes it's very hard to see who is winning. There's definitely a little bit of luck involved as well when it just comes to the RNG of stacking your Phoenixes and making sure you don't have too much overkill. Because, yeah, you like to one-shot Phoenixes, but you don't need 19 Phoenix to kill one Phoenix. So it's definitely a little bit random. A Guardian Shield is very impactful, but it's also kind of hard to sneak it in because you don't want to fall behind in the Phoenix count. It's 100 at gas. We don't have Warp Gate. So these things are all a little bit awkward to rush into. But if the game stabilizes, nothing happens, we'll definitely see a little sentry.
All right, so Roddy, we have MaxPax here. He is moving into carriers just a little bit faster than ShoWTimE. Talk to me about that transition, because like, what makes MaxPax know that, okay, yeah, I can move into carriers now, and this is worth doing?
maybe he just felt that ShoWTimE is also doing it and he doesn't want to be stuck with only Phoenix. Because MaxPax has definitely been the more aggressive player up to this point, right? He's often been on ShoWTime's side of the map and he's probably feeling like, you have too many batteries. I can't really take a Phoenix fight. You're probably going into carriers. I don't want to find myself in a position where, you know, you have carriers and I only have Phoenix. Because you can definitely kite the interceptors of 1 or 2 carriers, but if the carrier count goes up a little bit too high, at one point there's too many interceptors to gun down, and while you're shooting at interceptors, the Phoenixes of your opponent are shooting at your Phoenix, and those are just not fights you're going to win in the long haul.
No, not really. And I got to point this out. The pilot of MaxPax, it went down the one zealot that ShoWTimE did not donate, that MaxPax did, making the difference. That means that MaxPax does not nearly have as much map vision on his side of the map. So it's the small things, folks. It's that hero zealot from the start of the game. And that is going to... No, it's not. But anyway, It does shut down the vision for MaxPax a little bit. +1 air, right around the same time for both players. How many carriers do we get to? Is there a number in this PvP setup that really is... Okay, yeah, no more?
I don't think so. I think the more the merrier. The only thing you want to be careful of is when they get Tempest. It's the weirdest triangle where Phoenixes are actually really good against Tempest, but Tempests are incredibly good against carriers, and carriers are really good against Phoenix and can be good against Tempest, but only if they can get in range. So I would say the more carriers, the better. Eventually, you definitely want to get rid of your Phoenixes because, you know, there is a point where either you get carriers or Tempest or both, but carrier Phoenix isn't quite the ultimate dream, but you obviously don't want to just donate all your Phoenixes right now because then you feel like you're very susceptible to a counterattack and you can just straight up die.
Absolutely, but here comes MaxPax. He feels pretty confident in his setup, sitting at 5 carriers to 5, 2 Phoenix down. He does have that sentry, so again, he's just a little bit behind in army supply right now in terms of effective army supply, but carriers are on the map to ShoWTimE look to take this fight. He doesn't want to... Oh, no, he does have his interceptors out as well, which is one of the things we look at when we talk about these crazy Phoenix carrier fights. If you can find something to attack before you take the fight with your opponent and you have your interceptors out first, then you can just burst the carriers of your opponent down before it ever happens in earnest, and then you do win that fight. But it's not going to happen. MaxPax backs up, ShoWTimE backs up. And again, we have this game of, do I have a little bit more than you? Just very much, you know, 2 goats staring at itself on two different rocks, saying, "Am I going to be the first one to headbutt? Are you?"
Yeah, you don't want to be the guy that builds up for 12 minutes and then you're like, all right, let's just fight. And then while you fight, your opponent has that defender's advantage. With carriers would be a very big deal, having 1 or 2 extra carriers, or they take a fight in range of an overcharge and you're like, well, that's it. I macroed for 12 minutes. I made a lot of tiny moves, and in the end, it all didn't matter because I was the one who decided to be aggressive. So it really just becomes it's a nail-biting game. Like, it can end at 1 fight, attacking the debris indeed to get all your interceptors out, and then switching targets, making sure that all the interceptors are deployed. That could be a real game changer. And the armies are so damn similar that I do like the way that MaxPax has played this, because I feel MaxPax has played a very fair and honest game, and he has scouted as much as possible. But if you take a look at ShoWTimE's vision, ShoWTimE has never even seen the 3rd base. He's just assumed that MaxPax is doing all the things that he's doing as well. And he was right, but I do feel that MaxPax has played a slightly more honest game.
And certainly he has a better understanding of the game state, I think, just because he has been more active on the map. But now here he comes. He's going to kill a pylon in his opponent's main base. Such action. Incredible. Roddy, I got a question for you, though. Sometimes we do see players, they start to move into... What is this harassment happening? Was that a zealot that ran in? Oh, it looks like ShoWTimE actually killed some of his own probes, I think.
Or a couple of Phoenixes, maybe, because MaxPax is getting close to maxed out. So this is where you start feeling comfortable to maybe split off 1 or 2 Phoenixes, so you can free up some supply for more carriers or Tempest or an Oracle, because Revelation can be very important. So you don't have to fly in with 20 Phoenix, but you can definitely split off like 3 Phoenix, kill a couple probes, and then just let it go. Yeah, MaxPax also killing his own probes at this point.
Actually killed one of his own Phoenix as well. Just trying to, as you said, free up that supply. But I was going to ask you about how you felt about the addition of a mothership, which normally, you know, -400 memes. But if your opponent has not moved to Oracle play, which, by the way, we just saw MaxPax add an Oracle, that additional, 800 health, that is just as a buffer before they can fight your actual army. I have seen that be the inflection point in these Phoenix carrier battles.
Yeah, it can definitely be very good, especially against Phoenixes. Phoenixes are not great against motherships. Carriers a little bit better, but it takes a little while if all the interceptors are not out yet. So it can be very useful. I'm personally not a big fan when it comes to like, oh, if I play my own game, but that's probably just because I'm not that good with it. It's also definitely a target against Tempest, though, and normally in games like this, the Tempest count will go up. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really player dependent. I think some players love it for perhaps all the right reasons, and some players are just not a fan because they feel like they can get better value from something else. Because it's not so much about the cost at that point, because they're both obviously very rich. It's more about the supply that it takes, and yeah, then what it brings to the fight.
And now that you mention it, Roddy, I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen any sort of Tempest transition here. It feels like if the game keeps going as it is, MaxPax and ShoWTimE both powering ahead on all their upgrades, on everything else, reducing their worker count even more so they can get more carriers. We're just hitting this arms race of who can hit more carriers, and nothing really breaks that stalemate.
Nope, and I guess the more the merrier. MaxPax is gonna fire up the mama ship though. And I have the feeling that if ShoWTimE sees MaxPax getting one, that ShoWTimE might just think, then I'll get one too. I don't really understand why ShoWTimE is building one more Phoenix now after he has already killed a bunch of his own Phoenix, unless I'm mistaken. So, I don't know. The man wants another Phoenix for whatever reason.
Their goals are beyond the scope of our mortal comprehension, Roddy. That's just how that works. You talk about Mothership versus Mothership, though. We do need to point out MaxPax has an Oracle, and ShoWTimE does not. So if that is the way the fight works, theoretically detection, but of course there are observers here as well. MaxPax will lose this bottom side base that he wasn't really mining from anyways. He's only on 47 workers, so his army supply is much better. Oracle stays alive, but now we got to pay attention here because the fight is not going to kick off. Never mind. I lied.
Yeah, that would have been a pretty good moment for ShoWTimE to fight, as he did have all the intercepts out. Loses the sentries, could be a big deal, but with this many carriers, I mean, the sentry has crazy potential, but it's also insane to imagine like a fight with like 18 or 20 carriers gets decided by a Guardian Shield. But yeah, all those interceptors do fire twice, so Phoenix is fired twice, so Guardian Shield can have a very big impact. Upgrade-wise, ShoWTimE is a little bit ahead. This could be that fight that we have been waiting for. This fight is going to be a mess, but Guardian Shield should be very big here for MaxPax. And even though I have a hard time saying what's happening, I have the feeling that MaxPax is absolutely dominating this fight, Biomorph.
Oh, that he is. We have the Guardian. The sentries are lifted, but the Guardian Shield's still doing what it needs to do, and all the carriers of ShoWTimE have gone down. 16 minutes of build-up, 30 seconds of action. MaxPax 2-0.
Maybe it was the Guardian Shield. I mean, I'm gonna have to take another look at that fight to see what the exact numbers. ShoWTimE had an armor upgrade advantage, I believe. Actually, no, was that even in upgrades? No, +3 armor was gonna finish up. Obviously, the interceptors were first attacking a gas, but ShoWTimE did have a couple of interceptors out initially. It's 18 carriers against 18 carriers. MaxPax did have a few more Phoenixes, but MaxPax had the Guardian Shields, and ShoWTimE lost his sentries. And maybe the target fire of MaxPax was a little bit better too. It just felt that MaxPax was immediately convinced that this is the fight he wants. This is the fight he's looking for. And ShoWTimE was like, I don't really want to fight because I lost the sentries, but I guess we can fight anyway. And by the time that you make that commitment, it's almost already too late.
Yeah, it was like a 30 or 40 army supply lead as well, just in terms of generic things, which I guess was the Phoenix and the sentries. But
yeah,
also ShoWTimE had to lift the sentries to prevent another Guardian Shield from going off. The Guardian Shield was still doing a great job as it was lifted there, which is not something we see every day. So 2 more Phoenix, not involved in the fight necessarily, which who knows, maybe that swung it just a little bit more. Interesting game, incredibly technical game in a different way from the Glittering Ashes game. But now we move into Hardwire, which is, well, probably our second biggest map in the pool. It does not have a ramp, which means we're not likely to see Phoenix Wars again. But Roddy, MaxPax is up 2 now.
Yeah, no, that's very big for MaxPax. Obviously, the first Protoss to make top 4 in this tournament. That has to be really frustrating for ShoWTimE, though, because like you said, it's 17, 18, 19 minutes of build-up. And even if the army supply of MaxPax was a bit bigger, don't forget, he was still building a mothership, so that's already 8 supply. He had 2 Oracles, and then I think he was the one with 6, 7 more Phoenix, but Phoenixes really don't make the difference there. So it truly is all about the target fire of your carriers and the way that that engagement takes place. Yeah, even if you lift the sentry, the Guardian Shield is still there, and it's actually very hard to kill sentries in the middle of those big fights, because you don't want to have like 17 carriers attack a sentry. Like, that's ridiculous, right? That could be an insane amount of damage elsewhere. You don't really want to have all your Phoenixes. you want to prioritize other things. It's really hard, but at the same time, you can't ignore that Guardian Shield. So maybe MaxPax just saw that one opportunity after ShoWTimE. His sentries were trailing behind a little bit, and he just went for it. Yeah, now up to 0. He has to be absolutely loving life. One map away from making it into the top 8 of the DreamHack Masters Europe Regionals Valencia. The Prince of Denmark, it's MaxPax.
His opponent, they call him the wall, but now his back is up against it for Berlin International Gaming. His name, folks, is ShoWTimE. Also, Roddy, I love that conspiracy theory with MaxPax. The whole, yeah, we don't see his face on screen because he's actually secretly the Prince of Denmark, and you know that would break royal security protocols.
Makes sense. I mean, the main reason why I couldn't go to Katowice is because he had to throw a champagne bottle in one of the new ships of the Royal Dutch Navy or Danish Navy. You know, it's just some things take priority. Makes sense.
Now, talk about that last game just a little bit more because I have the actual ESL feed on my second monitor, so I can see it again 2 minutes later. You were right. ShoWTimE did have that one upgrade lead, but actually, for the second half of that fight, it may not have mattered because maybe the shields were all gone at that point, but he had a 2 upgrade lead. He had +3 shields as well.
Yeah.
So that does just make that fight for MaxPax even more impressive, fighting through 2 different defensive upgrades when, as you said, it's 8 interceptors per carrier, interceptors attack twice. That is a lot of damage mitigation.
Yep, but obviously he did have the Guardian Shields, right? So that can kind of make up for it. And it just felt that MaxPax was able to get all the interceptors, attack the right targets immediately. This is bad news, I think. Well, I don't know. Let's see how this one plays out. ShoWTimE is just going for the 3-gate straight up, kind of blind, without even scouting. Assuming MaxPax has a pylon on the low ground and a gateway on the low ground. MaxPax doesn't have that, but what MaxPax does have is still a 1-gate fast expand. So I kind of feel that ShoWTimE at the bare minimum should be able to cancel this Nexus, but I think he was hoping for a little more, right? I think he was hoping to cancel a Nexus, but also actually straight up bust down the wall, kill a pylon, kill a gateway, kill a cybercore. So I kind of feel that MaxPax is getting the best of the mind games here, and the scouting once more, man. In PvP, this guy is scouting second to none. He's the best. It's insane.
He's cut his teeth on all sorts of shenanigans, and now he knows exactly where the shenanigans can come from. So he's going to force a second pylon out. The Zealot will most likely, in fact, it will die. Oh, no, it won't, because ShoWTimE, he focuses on the Stalker as well, which is, of course, the much more important thing. But ShoWTimE is proxying his Twilight right next to the gateway because, you know, might as well. Even if you lose that position, you lose the game anyways. But, oh, Roddy, it's 2 Stalkers to 1. You can't do that, ShoWTimE. Oh, you need to snowball that.
That's really bad. ShoWTimE also did not manage to kill the Zealot. That's still in the bottom right side. Was trying to flank that one Stalker, trying to protect his pylon, but he ended up paying a very costly price. Now, the way that ShoWTimE is playing here is interesting. In one of the seasons of the DreamHack Masters, there was a great game between MaxPax and ShoWTimE. I think it was a DreamHack game, could have been a weekly. And it was on Romanticide, where ShoWTimE basically opens up Trigate, follows it up with Blink, and I think that Drogo is the original trendsetter of that. They stay on one base for a very long time, but they kind of thought that this was the ultimate way to play against MaxPax's 1-gate fast expand. But eventually they stopped doing that, so I assume that MaxPax just got even better in dealing with this kind of stuff too. And I have the feeling that this time around MaxPax's setup is really good, man, because he doesn't have to worry about an awkward wall at the bottom that he has to defend, but he's got double battery, he's got an Immortal. Like, if I was ShoWTimE right now, I think I'm super dead. I'm not lying. I'd just be like, I am so dead. Because I have no idea how he's supposed to break him here. But transitioning seems out of the question. Down 7 workers, 1 base against 2 base. So he needs to do something. But what does he do, Biomove?
We've seen Zest do this as well to MaxPax and have some level of success. And the whole idea is you put pressure on, maybe you knock some units down. And then when Blink finishes, you find some way to Blink on the high ground, avoid all this static defense and make that happen. But you mentioned it, those shield batteries, they're not on the wall. They actually can heal you if you're in the main and the natural. It's a lot easier than for ShoWTimE to make that defense. And it looks like this time, ShoWTimE is just pushing with worse shield batteries at the front. They don't have as much energy to start, but maybe it is going to be enough here with it being 3 gates to 2. I don't know there, Roddy. It does, oh man, it feels scary.
It looks really, really, really bad for ShoWTimE. Like, if this was a ladder game, I'm pretty sure he would just give up at this point. Now, obviously, since his tournament life is on the line here at the DreamHack Masters, he's going to try, but I mean, MaxPax is just getting the best of him in the mind games now, too. There were definitely possibilities for ShoWTimE in this entire best of 5. Game 1, he was winning at one point. Game 2, he could have won if he was a bit more adventurous with the Phoenixes when he had much quicker anti-impulse crystals. This time around, I feel like ShoWTimE gambled, and he gambled wrong. He's going to try to blink forward. He gets the... gets one. If the second Immortal goes down, there is actually a chance Battery Overcharge really dropped the ball there. This went about as poorly as possible for MaxPax. And I still think he's winning. That says enough, I think.
You say that, Roddy, but Shield Battery Overcharge is going to be done in a second. Now there's only one Immortal. ShoWTimE, maybe with that next warp in of Stalkers, can make something happen. There he goes. He blinks on top of it. Immortal now. It's going to go down. Hardened Shields. Oh, it's not going to go down on the high ground. There it is. Hardened Shields pop. And the problem is now is just there are too many Stalkers from MaxPax. ShoWTimE sacrificed too much, knocking those Immortals down. There's another one there. And on the other side of the map, MaxPax, he finds time. He puts 2 Adepts in the natural. Roddy, we're freaking cursed. It's a 3-0.